Hi, Steve here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about resilience and, of course, Stoicism. So, to be honest, there is a medical literature which suggests that Stoicism might not be very good for your resilience. So why would that be? The literature, in fact, is somewhat patchy. It seems to suggest that people with chronic medical conditions, which are lingering and unpleasant, do a bit better with a bit of Stoicism. And people who've got perhaps conditions which are incipient or who are in some sort of crisis may not seek help within a decent period of time, and they may suffer adverse consequences as a result of that. So I think it's worth understanding how the literature regards Stoicism. If you go into it and look at the Liverpool Stoicism scale and perhaps have a wee bit of reading around what that is constructed from, in an ideas sense, they don't really regard Stoicism as a philosophy. They regard it as a personality variable, which tends to be more common in males and tends to be more common as people get older. So they really don't see it as a philosophy. They don't see it as something that you could just consciously adopt. They just tend to say that some people are like this and some people aren't. So that really isn't a very good view of Stoicism. That tends to pick up people who are unyielding, who they're taciturn, they don't speak about their emotions, and they simply put up with troubles. So obviously that's not really a very good way of adapting to difficulties, which of course is the essence of resilience. So we can conceptualize resilience kind of in three sort of stages, depending on the level of difficulty. The first concept of resilience is as being unyielding, like a lintel over a doorway, and especially on ancient doorways, big stone lintels. They take the weight of all the rocks above, and they stay in exactly the same shape within visual detection range anyway. The next kind of resilience, in terms of time struggles, like sort of a tree in a storm. The branches bend, but hopefully the storm's not too bad. They come back into shape. Nothing much is different about the tree. It just simply bears the load by reacting to it and then returning as it was. But real resilience involves adaptation to change, which means growth. It means finding new ways of doing things, new strategies. And that's kind of where Stoicism comes in. It's not just a personality variable where you tend to sort of put up and shut up. It's a way of taking stock of a situation, looking at it carefully, calmly, and then acting. So why would this not be a good thing? Well, for a start, it's not what most people do most of the time. If you think about it, we talked about how the mother-infant bond, how people start off in life in a sort of not as an individual. They're in a dyad, or they grow into a family group. And most of their difficulties are dealt with within this group context. Problems are shared. Other people are around. They give you pointers and help. Children, you bring up children in a way that exposes them to progressively more and more challenging situations. But they're supported in that to the degree they need. That's all very Marxist, from each according to his ability to each according to his need. Families probably work best that way. And as you get older, more and more responsibility is handed off to you. So that's being a kind of an ideal way of having an upbringing. And obviously people who don't get their developmental needs met in this way run into all sorts of troubles in adult life. But this sense of connection to others is really important. And in fact, psychologically, we tend to consider that you carry that sense of connection to others as you get older, you internalize it. And so even though it's not explicit in the situation you're in, you always know that you're a member of a group, be it a family or a team or a society or a culture. And you carry that with you wherever you go. And that allows you to function relatively independently, but internally you're still referring to others, really. So Stoicism doesn't really work like that. And that tends to break down when you don't have the support of others. So, some people, I guess you might imagine, people like sort of terrible people like conquistadors can go out there, they carry their own culture, they go out amongst others and they can fight and conquer and do terrible things because they carry with them the certainty that their culture is superior and they can simply act in that way without the support of the locals. But most people actually need support to be more explicit, especially when they run into sort of crises. So most people look for support. So if you looked at, say, a crisis plan that people might have, they might have some things they might do on their own: have a bath, watch TV, listen to music, take the dog for a walk. If you don't have a dog, buy a dog, take that one for a walk. Things that you can do to comfort yourself, to sort of placate your emotions on a basic sort of level. And if that doesn't work, you tend to talk about who you can talk to. Your family members, your parents, your siblings, good friends, and see if you can sort of problem shared as a problem halved. And then if that doesn't work, then you can resort to professional helplines, or going and seeing professionals, doctors or counsellors or such. So that's how normal people work. The more difficult things get, the more trouble they have in coping, the more they seek out the comfort and support of their fellow man. And not that Stoics don't necessarily do this, but they would do it much more explicitly. The thing about Stoics is that you are on your own, essentially, in your own head, and you're in charge. So you're not answerable to other people. In as much as you can get support from other people in this plan of escalating support, the expectations on you to conform to the social expectations and rules tend to increase. And so people who need support tend to have to conform in order to maintain that support. And most people run into serious crises when they've done things that alienate themselves from sources of support. Now, they may have done terrible things, and I don't support people who do terrible things. I'm just observing that once you've done some terrible things to your support people and they've stepped away, then you can be very emotionally vulnerable. And that it's people who are in these types of settings, they may have just suffered a misfortune, of course, to lose their supports. They may be in a different city or something like that. But once you're in these situations, people commonly don't really know how to rely on themselves. And I guess this is where I kind of return to my metaphor of the plane, the pilot in the plane, that the plane can kind of operate on automatic most of the time. That's got pre-programmed responses to things. But if things go terribly wrong, then you're going to have to switch off the autopilot, start controlling it manually. You're going to have to know what you're doing. And in the first instance, you might rely on your training and the manual, and that's probably the best thing to do in the first instance. But you may run into situations where your trained responses and the manual, if we imagine that the manual's other people's support, or you phone up Tower or the airline's support line, if that doesn't work, then you may have to deal with things yourself. And I think this is far more common than people envisage. And when people run into this sort of problem and they haven't really thought about how they will respond, then they can become very distressed and disorganised, or simply fail to act. And that's where the philosophy of Stoicism comes in, where it gives you a structure, how to regard yourself, how to regard the world, and how basically to approach things in a way that is going to be useful to you. Now, all that being said, I would say that the major deficit in Stoicism is that it doesn't attend very well to internal emotional states, although it is internal emotional states that actually define what a terrible problem is. Not many terrible problems that people face are purely technical issues. Almost all of them involve scary aspects, or rejection, or pain, or some other feeling state which tends to really challenge people. And so what I want to do next with this channel in the next interview, next review, is talk about feelings, where they come from, how they operate, and how you might best regard them within a Stoic framework, so that you can manage yourself and manage your feelings more effectively in times of difficulty. So that's all I've got to do today. Please remember to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this, and we'll see you all again in about a week's time.